أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه وأعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بشيرا ونذيرا بين يدي الساعة وأرسل رسوله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون من يطع الله ورسوله فقد رشد واهتدى ومن يعصهما فإنه قد غوى وإنه لا يضر إلا نفسه ولا يضر الله شيء إن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وإن خير الأمور عوازمها وشر الأمور محدثاتها كل محدثات بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. أما بعد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في محكم القرآن الكريم في سورة الحشر يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله ولتنظر نفس ما قدمت لغد واتقوا الله إن الله خبير بما تعملون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. My dear brothers and sisters, as the seasons change and the months and the weeks and the days go by, it is good for us to constantly stay focused on our need to be assessing what we have been doing for when it counts the most. This ayah that is recited as part of the general khutbah, we have heard this so many times, and I use that to remind myself and all of us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cautions us, O you who believe, fear Allah, keep your duty to Him, and let every person look ahead to what He has sent forth for the morrow. And fear Allah. Verily, Allah is all aware of what you do. The big caution here is for man to take account on a regular basis. This focus on self-assessment, introspection, muhasiba. What have I done for the future? For the hereafter. That is so significant. Ibn Kathir rahimahullah in his tafsir of this ayah crystallizes this, where he says, account for yourself before there is a serious accounting. And look to what you have accumulated by doing the good deeds for the day of your appointment and presentation before your Lord. And know that He is knowledgeable of all your acts, all of the circumstances surrounding these acts, and nothing is hidden from Him. This focus on self-accounting is emphasized by a pair of divine oaths, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran drives us to this regular assessment and self-accounting. In Surah Al-Qiyamah, لا أقسم بيوم القيامة. I swear, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, by the day of resurrection, the certainty of what is going to happen when we are brought up before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there is this complementary oath with it. وَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِالنَّفْسِ الْلَوَّامَةِ. I swear by the self-reporting self, the awakened conscience which makes me cautious about what I'm doing. It is the awakened conscience within that helps to guide us that is being focused on here. The existence of the conscience within the heart and soul of humans is tied to our inevitable resurrection and the salvation that may come, inshallah. There is the soul which is filled with happiness and is rewarded for the righteous deeds on earth. The soul which is tormented and chastised for committing evil deeds. And the deeds in the lifetime that we have, they have consequences. And most certainly, there is the divine assessment on the day of reckoning with just a reward or retribution. Together, these verses emphasize for us, by the day of Qiyamah, by the self-reproaching soul, we will be raised on the day of judgment to be accountable for our deeds and to be compensated. And the nafs, our soul within, we are told to be conscious about it. The nafs al-lawama, it refers to our conscience, which must have the nature to constantly monitor our actions and to reduce and avoid the misdeeds and increase the good deeds. Contrasting it with the nafs al-ammara bil-su, the soul which bids us to evil and leads to decadence and corruption if it is unchecked by our faith, our reason, and our actions. And in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warns us constantly, verily the soul which bids to evil, unless my Lord bestows mercy on me. So there is this element of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's graciousness that He provides us with this right conscience. And then the goal is the nafs al-mutma'inna, the contented soul, which results from remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and our worship and actions in furtherance of that remembrance. So we as Muslims then, we have to be constantly assessing the role of our conscience, our soul, and where we stand. As Muslims, of course, we have to be focused on the commandment of Allah, the submission to Allah, and believing in Allah and the good actions. But it is a constant assessment that is key. The Prophet ﷺ warned us, people wake up in the morning, he said, and they bargain with their souls. There are amongst those who buy freedom for their souls, and there are others who sell their souls into destruction. Astaghfirullah. So this muhasabah is the key to retaining and strengthening our iman and our amal. As Muslims, we submit to the will and commandments of Allah. As mu'mineen, we affirm our belief in Allah and His commandments, and then we act out upon them. And the muhasabah, the assessment, the introspection, is a regular accounting of our beliefs and our actions to avoid veering off the right path, to avoid falling into sin, and avoid being a fajr. A fajr is one who is a sinner by action. If not corrected with serious muhasabah assessment, then it moves on to the next stage of becoming a fasiq. A fasiq is an open sinner, where the soul becomes dead, the conscience dies as to what is right, and then one becomes known openly to represent evil and doing bad deeds. And then there is the status we want to avoid of being the munafiq, the one who professes belief openly, but then acts in contrast to it. And of course, we want to be staying away completely from the stage of being a kafir, one who disbelieves completely. So the self-assessment, my dear brothers and sisters, is key. It has to be done on a regular basis. Anas bin Malik radiallahu anhu relates from the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. He said, Al-Qais, this is the one who's determined to gain as much from every opportunity. He takes himself to task and works for that which is after death. And he says, and the ajiz, the deficient, the incompetent, This is the one whose nafs, whose soul follows his desires, and he makes excuses before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salama radiallahu anhu relates that the Prophet ﷺ said, when Allah wishes good for a servant, he makes a wise, an admonisher, a reminding person from the person's nafs, which commands him to obedience and forbids him from the acts of obedience. This wise, this conscience, this guide is strengthened by muhasabah, the muhasabah that we have to do on a regular basis. Muhasabah an-nafs, strictness in assessing the role of our soul and our conscience and reproaching it. And Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu related it best when he said, whoever criticizes his nafs for Allah, Allah will keep him safe from his critique, his anger on the day of resurrection. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warns us of the past communities who caused high loss to themselves because they never thought they would be accountable. Allah warns us of this arrogant attitude. Innahum kanu la yarjuna hisaba. For truly, they used not to expect any reckoning. So muhasabah, taking account of oneself in expectation of the reckoning is hence critical for our salvation. This effect of muhasabah is so significant. Abu Darda radiallahu anhu relates, a Muslim cannot have proper understanding of Islam until he criticizes people for the sake of Allah. He's aware of what's happening outside, but he says until he criticizes himself more. So the self-critique based on assessment is critical for a devoted Muslim. And the muhasabah leads to humility and correction. I immediately assess myself. I may think I'm a pious person. I may have these self-delusions about being so pious and on the right path. I get the chance to come and give a Jummah khutbah and I start elevating myself, astaghfirullah, in my mind. And then I'm told, when I do my assessment, I realize how far away are you, my friend, from what you are expected to be doing. How lowly can you be when you assess the evil that you've been doing, the sins, the temptations that I've been falling into. It humbles me before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and yet it gives me a chance to seek Allah's forgiveness and guidance as a result of this assessment. And the last thing then, brothers and sisters, I want to remind us is we cannot get into a status of complacency or carelessness about this self-assessment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala warns us of this. In Surah Al-Anfitar, Ya ayyuhal insanu ma gharraka bi rabbikal kareem. Oh man, what has made you careless about your Lord, the most generous? So we have to make sure that there is a sense of urgency about this assessment, inshallah. That we don't wait for the seasons to go by, that we do not wait for our jobs to lead us to a state of settlement, that our children are settled in, that I don't have to worry about anything else, and then I will do my assessment. These changing seasons, the revolving months, these remind us that the days of our life are numbered, and every breath we take takes us closer to the end of our life. And I need to be making this assessment. So let us keep in mind the important caution from Umar radiallahu anh. Call yourselves to reckoning before you are called to reckoning. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us to regular muhasabah, to constant self-assessment as the basis for a positive turning point in the lives of each one of us, our families, our local and our world communities. And lastly, brothers and sisters, as a reminder, we have to be assessing our actions too in engaging the world and what is happening around us. We have to be sure we become aware of the role we have to play in the system here where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has placed us in. So we need to be critical of what is happening, but critical in the sense of engaging ourselves. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help us understand the true role we have to play as citizens of this country, become participants in the process and making us avenues for goodness to prevail according to the will and plan of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let us remember His words, for His words are the truth, the supreme truth. صدق الله العلي العظيم ونفعني وإياكم بآياته وذكر الحكيم إنه تعالى جواد كريم ملك بر رؤوف رحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. أما بعد فيا معشر المسلمين، قال الله سبحانه وتعالى: إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد بعدد من صلى وصام. اللهم صل على سيدنا ومولانا محمد بعدد من قاد وقام. اللهم صل على جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى سائر الصحابة والتابعين وخلفاء الراشدين وعباد الله الصالحين. اللهم أيد الإسلام والمسلمين. اللهم قوي إيمان إخواننا وأخواتنا في كل مكان، خصوصا في فلسطين وسوريا واليمن وچين وميانمار وكشمير وتركيا وهند وباكستان وبنغلاديش وفي كل يوروب وفي كل أمريكا وفي كل أفريقيا. اللهم قوي إيمانهم وثبت أقدامهم وانصرهم على عدوهم. اللهم اشف مرضانا ومرضى المسلمين وارحم موتانا وموتى المسلمين. اللهم اغفر لكل جميع موتى المسلمين. اللهم اغفر لهم وارحمهم واعف عنهم وعافهم. اللهم انزل على قبورهم الضياء والنور والفسحة والسرور برحمتك عليهم يا غفار يا ودود. ربنا افرغ علينا صبرا وتوفنا مسلمين. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. اللهم فرج كروب المسلمين وعامل روات المسلمين واستر عورات المسلمين. اللهم إنا أعوذ بك من كل سيء الأسقام. آمين يا رب العالمين. عباد الله رحمكم الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر. أقيموا الصلاة.